My parents chose my cheating ex over me. After the divorce, every family gathering turned into the same message. She was like a daughter to them. I needed to get over it, so I stopped coming to anything. Now they're begging to meet their 3 grandchildren, and I keep forgetting to call back. Hey, Reddit. My parents picked my cheating ex-wife over me. They kept inviting her to every single family event. They told me to move on. Now they're shocked I won't let them meet my kids. Buckle up. This is betrayal, bad parenting, and the kind of revenge that feels quiet but powerful. I'm 32 now. This started 7 years ago. I was 25, getting married to who I thought was the love of my life. Before you judge anything, you need context. Because once you understand where I came from, you'll understand why I snapped when they pushed me too far. I'm an only child. That should mean attention and love. Didn't. My parents always wanted a daughter. They made that clear my whole childhood. My mom talked about shopping trips, wedding planning, someone to do those things with. My dad joked that sons are fine, but daughters take care of you when you're old. It sounded small. It wasn't. I grew up hearing about everything we couldn't do because I was a boy. No tea parties, no dress shopping, no mother-daughter spa days, no daddy-daughter dances. It gets into your head. Every birthday, every Christmas, there was a quiet disappointment. I wasn't what they wanted. They were good in practical ways. I was fed, clothed, had a home, went to decent schools. But emotionally, there was distance. I was enough, just not ideal. Other kids had parents at every game and recital. Mine came to the important ones, then talked about their friends' daughters. I played baseball in high school. I made varsity as a sophomore. My dad came to maybe a third of my games. When he did, he spent half the time on his phone. Meanwhile, my friends had parents with signs and cowbells at every game. I told myself it didn't matter. It did. It always did. Then I met Jessica at 22. My parents were thrilled. Not because I was happy. Not because she was good for me. They were excited because they finally got their daughter. From day one, they treated her like their own. I became the guy who introduced her. That was it. We met at a mutual friend's party. She was gorgeous, confident, funny, out of my league. We talked for hours. She laughed at my jokes. She listened closely. She made me feel seen. Later I realized she was just very good at that. It helped her in sales. We started dating. Within a month, I introduced her to my parents. That was mistake number 1. The moment she walked in, it was effortless. Compliments to my mom about the house. Genuine interest in my dad's boring stories about municipal accounting. She brought homemade cookies she baked that morning. My mom pulled me into the kitchen with tears in her eyes. She said Jessica was perfect. Don't mess this up. From that point on, Jessica became the center of everything. My mom called her more than she called me. Plans were made without me. I'd come home from work and Jessica would already be at my parents' house for dinner. When I asked why I wasn't invited, my mom said she thought I was working late. Even when I wasn't, Jessica loved it. My mom and her talked for hours about recipes and decor. My dad taught her golf and took her out on weekends. I didn't even play. Family dinners slowly shifted. Everything became about Jessica's job as a pharmaceutical sales rep. Her opinions, her travel, her stories. I sat there quietly, passing the salt, watching my own family orbit around her. I'd sit there like a prop in my own life, occasionally getting asked to pass the salt. Jessica's own family was kind of distant. Her parents divorced when she was young. Both remarried quickly. She had step-siblings she didn't really know. Parents focused on their new families. I think that's why she latched onto my parents so hard. They gave her the family she'd always wanted, and they finally got the daughter they'd always wanted. I was just the middleman who made it possible. At first, I thought it was great that my girlfriend and parents got along so well. It beats in-law drama, right? My buddy from college was dealing with a girlfriend whose mom hated him, and that sounded like a nightmare. I figured this was what a healthy family looked like. I was young. I was naive. I didn't see the red flags that were practically slapping me in the face. But the warning signs were there. Jessica would make decisions about our relationship, then tell my parents before telling me. She'd plan our weekends around my parents' schedule without asking if I had other plans. When we disagreed, she'd call my mom, and they'd team up against me until I gave in. Started small. It grew slowly. One time we were looking at apartments to move in together. I found a great place near my work, good price, practical. Jessica found one 20 minutes farther from my job, but 15 minutes closer to my parents' house. Guess which one we ended up with? My mom helped convince me, saying things like, "You can visit us more often," and "Jessica's commute is longer than yours, so it's only fair." We got married after 3 years of dating. Big wedding. Over 200 people. The whole thing. My parents paid for most of it, but made sure everyone knew Jessica planned every single detail. Which was true. I wanted a small beach ceremony with close friends and maybe a casual restaurant reception. Simple. Meaningful. Affordable. Jessica wanted the fairy tale wedding. The full fairy tale. Pinterest boards with thousands of pins. For bridal magazines. 17 venues before choosing the one she liked at the beginning. The engagement turned into a production, more about the event than the marriage. Every weekend disappeared into cake tastings, flower choices, band auditions, meetings with photographers. I tried to participate, but most of the time Jessica and my mom had already narrowed it down to 2 nearly identical options, and my role was to nod and agree. If I suggested something different, they'd exchange that look like I was being difficult. The wedding planning exposed the dynamic I'd ignored. I wanted a friend, an amateur DJ, to handle the music. Jessica and my mom insisted on a professional band that cost $8,000. When I objected to the price, my dad pulled me aside and said, the message was clear. My vision wasn't right. The guest list was another loss. I wanted under 100 people. Jessica's list alone was 150. Coworkers she barely knew. Distant relatives she'd met once. High school friends she hadn't spoken to in years. When I questioned why we were inviting people who weren't close to us, my mom said weddings are about bringing people together and that I was being antisocial. My parents paid about 60% of the wedding, which was generous, but they reminded me of it constantly during planning. Every time I pushed back, my dad would mention they were paying most of the bill, as if I had demanded it. They chose the big wedding because they wanted it. I would have been happy with a courthouse and a nice dinner. Guess which one we had? My only real contribution was showing up and agreeing. I chose my groomsmen. I chose the officiant, a family friend who'd known me since childhood. Jessica and my mom handled everything else. Colors, flowers, menu, seating chart, timeline, decorations, favors, programs, everything. The night before the wedding, we had a rehearsal dinner at an upscale restaurant Jessica's aunt recommended. My parents' toast was 90% about how wonderful Jessica was and 10% about how lucky I was to have found her. My dad said, "We always wanted a daughter and now we finally have one." Everyone laughed. Glasses clinked. I smiled and nodded, as if it was sweet, not a gut punch reminding me I'd never been enough. The wedding day was beautiful objectively. Perfect weather. Elegant venue. Everything ran smoothly. Over 200 guests arrived. The ceremony was nice. The reception was fun. Jessica looked stunning. She seemed genuinely happy. I was happy too in that moment. But when I look at the photos now, I see it clearly. That quiet uncertainty in my face. That feeling that I was a supporting character at my own wedding. My mom cried during the ceremony. Later, she told everyone it was because she was so happy. Maybe that was true. But I think part of it was something else. She'd finally gotten the daughter she always wanted. She'd imagined this wedding for years, probably picturing a daughter she never had. Now she was living it through Jessica. The entire day felt less like a celebration of me and Jessica as a couple, and more like a celebration of Jessica joining my family. Every speech said how lucky my family was to have her. How perfectly she fit in. How she was already like a daughter to my parents. Nobody really talked about us as a team. Nobody spoke about partnership. It was all about her being welcomed in. I brushed it off then. Told myself I was being too sensitive. that it was sweet how much my family loved my new wife, that I should be grateful instead of uncomfortable. That's what you do when you've spent your whole life hearing subtle messages that you're not quite what was wanted. You learn to silence your instincts. You explain away the red flags. The first couple of years of marriage looked fine on the surface. We had normal problems, money disagreements, whose turn it was to do dishes, how to spend holidays, regular couple friction, nothing that felt catastrophic. But looking back, the foundation was weak from the beginning. Jessica traveled constantly for pharmaceutical conferences and client meetings, sometimes gone for a week at a time. She was genuinely talented at sales and building relationships. She was good at her job. The money was strong, better than what I made. She came home with stories about fancy dinners, hotel suites, trade shows, networking events. Meanwhile, I worked as an insurance adjuster for a regional company. Steady hours, decent pay, home every night. I investigated claims, assessed damages, interviewed people, wrote reports. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. And I liked the investigative side of it. There was something satisfying about sorting through details, figuring out what really happened, separating facts from fiction. My work-life balance was solid. I was home by 6 most nights. Weekends were free unless something urgent came up. I thought it was a good life. Stable income. Time to relax. No unnecessary stress. Apparently, it wasn't impressive enough. My parents loved talking about Jessica's career. At family gatherings, it was always about her. Jessica just returned from a conference in Denver. Jessica's company is training a new regional team. Jessica is the top sales rep in her district. They repeated her achievements constantly. When people asked what I did, my dad would say, "In stuff," in a dismissive tone, then immediately shift back to Jessica. Sometimes he wouldn't even finish the sentence. He'd just change the subject. My mom did something similar. If someone asked about me, she'd say, "Oh, he's an insurance adjuster," with a small apologetic laugh, almost embarrassed. Then she'd quickly add, "But Jessica has a really exciting career in pharmaceutical sales." As if my job needed compensation. I started noticing the difference during dinners. When Jessica spoke about work, closing deals, handling difficult clients, traveling to new cities, my parents leaned in. They asked questions. They looked proud. When I talked about solving a complicated case, catching fraud, or receiving recognition from my boss, they nodded briefly and moved on within minutes. Eventually, I stopped sharing. Unless someone asked directly, which rarely happened. Why talk about your wins when no one listens? Around year 3, cracks began to show. Jessica became distant in a way that felt different. She was constantly on her phone, texting during dinner, stepping outside for calls she said were work-related. She was tired all the time, irritable, snapping over small things that never used to bother her. When she was home, she was physically there but mentally elsewhere. I'd talk about my day, and she'd scroll Instagram. I'd suggest watching a movie, and she'd say she had emails. I'd try to initiate intimacy, and she'd say she was exhausted from traveling. I encouraged her ambitions. So being called needy for wanting my wife to act like she remembered I existed. That hurt. I'm not stupid. I knew something was off. The late-night phone calls, the secretive texting, the increasing travel, the emotional distance, the lack of intimacy. I saw it, but I trusted her. More fool me. I told myself it was just work stress, that we were in a rough patch, that we'd come out stronger. That's the kind of optimistic lie you tell yourself when you don't want to face reality. I even tried to fix it, thought maybe we'd fallen into a rut, planned a surprise weekend trip to a bed and breakfast she'd mentioned wanting to visit. She canceled the day before because of a work emergency. I cooked her favorite meals when she was home. She'd take a few bites and say she wasn't hungry. I bought her gifts for no reason. She'd thank me absently and set them aside. My friends noticed the change in me, asked if everything was okay. I'd brush it off, make excuses. Marriages have tough seasons, right? Everyone goes through it. We'll figure it out. Looking back, I was lying to them, and to myself. Then came the night that changed everything. Jessica was supposed to be at a 3-day pharmaceutical conference in Chicago. She left Wednesday morning, kissed me goodbye at the door, said she'd call when she reached the hotel. She'd been excited for weeks, said it was important for networking, that there were seminars she wanted to attend. She called Wednesday night, sounded normal, told me about the hotel, other reps she met, the dinner reception. Thursday we exchanged short texts. Nothing unusual. I had no reason to doubt her. Then Friday night, around 11 p.m., my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. Something made me pick up. A woman named Linda. She said she was the wife of Jessica's coworker, Brian. She had found text messages on his phone that I needed to see. She was crying, apologizing for being the one to tell me. But she said she would want to know if she were in my place. My stomach dropped. Linda sent screenshots. Messages between Brian and Jessica going back almost 8 months. Not friendly work talk. Not jokes. Explicit. Detailed. Their affair. Plans to meet at conferences. Complaints about their boring spouses who didn't understand them. Conversations about what life would be like if they could be together full-time. It was brutal. I sat on our couch until 4 a.m., staring at the screen. Part of me hoped it was fake, that there was some explanation. But deep down I knew it was real. The late nights, the distance, the irritability, it all made sense now. Jessica came home Saturday at 10 a.m. smiling, asking about my week. I showed her my phone. The messages were open. I watched the color drain from her face. She denied it at first, said it wasn't what it looked like. Then she admitted it, said it was over, begged for forgiveness. I told her to pack a bag and leave. She cried, said she made a mistake, that she loved me, that we could fix it. I kept telling her to go. She finally left and stayed with her parents. I called a lawyer on Monday. Here's where it gets worse. I didn't tell my parents the details, just that Jessica and I were divorcing and I didn't want to discuss it. My mom immediately called Jessica, asked for her side. Jessica told them we had grown apart, that I refused to work on the marriage. She painted herself as the one trying to save us. My parents believed her completely. They started calling me, said I was making a huge mistake, that every marriage has rough patches, that I needed to be mature, that I should work on things. My dad actually said, "You're throwing away the best thing that ever happened to you over pride." I told them she cheated on me. I showed them the messages. My mother said, "Well, you must have done something to push her to that. People don't just cheat for no reason." My dad said I was probably not paying enough attention to her with her demanding career, and that I needed to examine my role in the breakdown of the marriage. I'm not even kidding. My own parents blamed me for my wife having an 8-month affair. They made excuses for her, said everyone makes mistakes, said I was being too harsh, too unforgiving. My mom even said, "Jessica is like a daughter to me, and I know her heart is good." The divorce took about 4 months to finalize. Jessica fought me on everything through her lawyer, trying to get more money, claiming she deserved half of everything, even though we'd only been married 3 years and she earned more than I did. My lawyer was strong, and in the end it was a clean split. No kids, no house, just savings and possessions divided. During those 4 months, my parents stayed in constant contact with Jessica. They had her over for dinner. My mom took her shopping. My dad invited her to his golf club, and they told me about it. We had Jessica over Sunday, and she's doing so well. Jessica joined us at the club, and everyone asked about her. Felt like they were rubbing it in my face. I told them it was inappropriate and hurtful to keep a relationship with someone who cheated on me and destroyed our marriage. My mom said, "Just because you two couldn't make it work doesn't mean we have to lose our relationship with her. She's been part of our family for 6 years. 6 years. I had been their son for 25 years, and they chose my cheating ex-wife over me because they'd known her for 6 years. The final divorce papers were signed on a Tuesday in March. It was my dad's birthday. I remember that clearly. I texted my parents that it was finalized. My mom replied, "That's too bad. We were hoping you'd reconsider." That year was hard. I buried myself in work, I spent time with friends. I started going to the gym regularly. I tried to rebuild as a single man. My parents kept calling, always mentioning Jessica, her promotion, how well she was doing, how she asked about me. Felt intentional, like they wanted me to feel regret. So I started declining family invitations. Thanksgiving, I said I had to work. Christmas, I wasn't feeling well. Easter, I made up an excuse I don't even remember. Every time they were trying to get us back together. Over a year after she cheated. They believed that keeping us in the same space would fix everything. As if I was unreasonable for not wanting to stay married to someone who had an 8-month affair. I told them I was done. That I wouldn't attend any more family events if Jessica was invited. That they needed to choose. My mother laughed. Said I was being ridiculous and controlling. Said they could have relationships with whoever they wanted. So I made the choice for them. I stopped answering calls. Stopped replying to texts, except for one-word responses. Stopped visiting. Stopped engaging. If they wanted Jessica as their daughter, they could have her. I stepped away for about 2 years. We were basically estranged. They reached out on birthdays and holidays. I replied with a quick thank you. Nothing more. No apologies. No acknowledgement. Just the assumption that I was being petty and holding a grudge. During that time, I met Rachel. She was a nurse at a hospital where I was handling an insurance claim. We started talking in the cafeteria. She was different from anyone I dated. Genuine. Funny. No games. We took things slow. We'd both been hurt before. After about 6 months, I knew she was the one. I didn't tell my parents about Rachel for the first year. There was no point. They had already shown me where I stood. I wasn't going to bring someone I cared about into that environment. Rachel knew the situation. She was supportive. She said she understood, and she wouldn't push me to reconcile until I was ready. Rachel and I got married at a courthouse, just our close friends there. No big wedding. No drama. No parents. It was perfect. Simple. Just us making a commitment to each other. Afterward, we had a small dinner with about 20 people at a nice restaurant. Everything I had wanted the first time. Everything I didn't get. My parents found out on Facebook. One of my friends posted photos and tagged me. My mom called crying. She asked how I could get married without telling them. She said she was hurt they weren't included. I told her she made her choice when she chose Jessica over me, and I had made mine. She tried to guilt me. Said I would regret excluding them from such an important day. I asked if Jessica had been at their last family gathering. She went quiet, then admitted, yes, Jessica was at their July 4th barbecue. I hung up. Rachel got pregnant about 8 months after we married. We were thrilled. Her pregnancy was easy. She gave birth to our daughter, Sophie, a beautiful, healthy baby girl. When the hospital staff asked about grandparents visiting, I said both sets lived far away. It was easier than explaining the truth. When Sophie was 3 months old, I posted one photo on Facebook. Me holding her. I just wanted to share the moment with friends who had supported me. Within an hour, my mom was calling. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail crying about having a granddaughter she'd never met and how unfair I was being. My dad sent a long text. He said they had made mistakes. But family was family, and their granddaughter deserved to know them. I didn't respond. They sent cards with money for Sophie. I donated the money to charity and threw the cards away. I want to be clear. I wasn't keeping Sophie from them out of spite. I was protecting my daughter from people who had shown me exactly who they were when it mattered. They blamed me for being cheated on. They kept a relationship with the woman who betrayed me. They chose someone they had known for 6 years over their own son. Why would I let people like that influence my child? Rachel and I had twin boys 2 years after Sophie. Jack and Noah. My parents found out the same way through Facebook. More voicemails. More guilt trips. My mom sent an email saying she was heartbroken that she had 3 grandchildren she'd never met and that I was being cruel. I finally replied. I wrote everything. How they blamed me for Jessica's affair. How they stayed close to her for years after the divorce. How they kept inviting her to family events and told me to get over it. How they never apologized. how they chose her over me again and again, and how I would not expose my children to people who treated their father that way. My dad replied that it was in the past and I needed to move on, that they had stopped seeing Jessica over a year ago, so everything was fine now, as if the only problem was contact with her, not the deeper betrayal. I didn't answer. There was no point. They didn't understand, and they probably never would. Now Sophie is 5. The twins are 3. We live about 2 hours from my parents. Close enough to visit if there were a relationship. Far enough that we won't accidentally run into them. Rachel's parents are incredible grandparents and fill that role perfectly. My kids don't know my parents exist. And they're not missing anything. Over the past 6 months, my parents have intensified their efforts. Calls, texts, emails, letters. They want to meet their grandchildren. They say they're getting older, running out of time. My mom sent a letter about health scares. She wants to make amends before it's too late. My dad sent money for the kids' college funds with a note about wanting to be involved. I keep saying I'll call them back. I tell Rachel I need to think. I save their voicemails to listen later. I put their letters in a drawer, meaning to read them someday. Somehow I keep forgetting. Must be getting forgetful in my old age. The guilt trips have changed. They've started messaging my friends on Facebook, asking them to remind me how important family is. My aunt calls every few weeks, saying my parents are heartbroken and I'm being too harsh. My cousin sent a long message about forgiveness and how everyone makes mistakes. What they don't understand is that I did forgive my parents. I forgave them so I could move forward and build a good life. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean access. It doesn't mean pretending their choices didn't reveal who they are. My mom's latest voicemail said she ran into Jessica, who would choose appearances and their own comfort over their child's well-being. My parents taught me something important. People show you who they are if you pay attention. They showed me I was disposable to them, that their idea of a daughter mattered more than their actual son, that keeping a comfortable social dynamic was more important than loyalty to family. So yes, they want to meet their grandchildren. They want to be part of our lives. They send gifts, cards, money. They leave tearful voicemails about running out of time. They ask relatives to pressure me into forgiveness. And I keep forgetting to call them back. Sophie recently asked if she has grandparents on my side. I answered honestly in a way a 5-year-old could understand. I have parents, but we don't talk to them because they weren't very kind to Daddy when he needed them. She accepted it with simple childhood logic and immediately asked if we could have ice cream instead. We did. My parents don't know about Sophie's love of drawing. They don't know the twins are obsessed with dinosaurs. They don't know Rachel and I are thinking about having one more child. They don't know we bought a bigger house last year. They don't know Jack needs glasses or that Noah is already reading at a first-grade level. They don't know Sophie wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up. They know none of it because they made their choice 7 years ago, and I made mine in response. The difference is I can sleep peacefully with mine. Last week, my dad sent an email with photos of him and my mom. They've aged. My mom's hair is completely gray now. My dad has lost weight. The message said, "We're not getting any younger and life is short," and asked to at least talk on the phone. I read it, looked at the photos, saved it in the same folder with the rest. I'll probably reply someday, when I get around to it. If I remember, I sometimes think about what I'd tell my kids if they were in my position. If someone they loved betrayed them, and others they trusted took the betrayer's side, blamed them, stayed close to the person who hurt them, told them to move on and stop being difficult, I tell them they don't owe those people anything. That blood doesn't give anyone automatic access to your life or your children. That forgiveness doesn't mean restoring a relationship. That sometimes the healthiest choice is walking away, even from family. I tell them what I tell myself. You protected yourself. You built a beautiful life without them. You don't owe anyone access just because they decided they want it now. My parents had every chance to be part of my life. They chose Jessica instead, again and again, for years. They didn't choose me when it mattered. They don't get to demand I choose them now that it's convenient. Rachel and I talked about it after the kids were asleep. She asked if I thought my parents understood why I cut contact. I told her the truth. I don't think they do. They probably see themselves as the victims of my stubbornness. They probably tell people their son won't let them see their grandchildren over some old disagreement. They probably describe me as the one holding a grudge. And I'm okay with that. Let them have that version. I know the truth, and so do the people who matter in my life. My kids are happy. Rachel and I have a strong marriage built on respect and loyalty. We have good friends and a peaceful home. No drama. No people who make us feel small or unsupported. Just stability. That's worth more than pretending everything is fine with people who showed me I couldn't rely on them when it counted. So my parents keep calling, keep emailing, keep sending letters, gifts, money. They ask relatives to speak to me. They leave messages about time running out and asking for a chance. And I keep meaning to respond. I really do. It's on my list. Right under reorganizing the garage and learning to play guitar. Important stuff I'll definitely get to eventually. Any day now. I'm sure I'll remember soon. The irony isn't lost on me. For years, they told me to get over what Jessica did. To forgive. To move on. To not hold grudges. And now they can't understand why I can't just get over what they did. Why I can't forgive and move on from them choosing her over me again and again. I followed their advice. I did get over it. I did move on. I built an entirely new life without any of them in it. I'm just not sure that's the outcome they were hoping for when they gave me that advice. My mom texted yesterday asking if we could at least video chat so she could see the kids. I read it while Sophie showed me her latest drawing of our family. Me, Rachel, her, and her brothers, all holding hands under a rainbow. It was beautiful, simple, complete. I showed Rachel the message. She squeezed my hand and said whatever I decided. She supported me. I looked back at the drawing, looked at my daughter's proud smile, thought about my boys in the next room building a block tower together. This is my family, the one I built, the one I protected by making hard choices, the one that exists because I decided my kids deserved better than what I had growing up. I put my phone down without replying. I'll respond eventually, when I have time, when the kids are older, maybe when I'm ready, or maybe I won't. And guys, we're so close to hitting 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you're not subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. It really helps us reach that 100,000 mark. Thank you for helping make this dream come true.